on mute to start the webinar. Good afternoon, folks. I see some folks coming in. Hang tight for a minute or two. We got everyone get into the room, and then we will get started shortly. See some names I recognize out in the chat. Awesome. Cameron, Elizabeth, Jen. That's the virtual wave, even though you don't get to wave back since you're not on video. Excellent. Some logistics while we're waiting for folks to filter in. Do the webinars via chat mostly to start with, just so that my brain only has one thing to really focus on. So if you have questions that come up in chat, you can do so. It's pretty small. It'll be a pretty small group. Had about 40 people register for this, but webinars nowadays, probably be 10 people that show up. So if you do want to come on and ask your question in voice, I'm happy to do so. Just recognize that there will be a recording of this posted, so keep that in mind. So we'll go through this, and I'll be keeping an eye on chat. I'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A pod. So whatever you need to do to get your question in, feel free to do so. And like I said, if you rather just be promoted to speaker, I can do that as well. Allow you to come on either video or audio, be able to talk through things. So maybe give people another 30 seconds, and then we will dive into introductions and get rolling into kind of some of what our AI tools are doing inside of Harmonize, but also we're going to do our first demo to the broader audience of what an AI rubric coach can look like. So for those of you who probably have already played with some of our AI tools, hang out to the end, because this will be the first live working demo of what AI can do to help students think a bit harder. So we're going to be walking through that. So let's get underway. I see a few people I don't recognize your name. Is anyone who's in here not already familiar with Harmonize? Like, do I need to do like the 20, 30-second introduction to what is Harmonize? The webinar is not going to be 100% about Harmonize. It's going to be a combination of using ChatGPT, how we think about this, so you can see the prompts, but then how it's integrated into Harmonize, so that if you're not a Harmonize user, you'll still gain some value from this. But if put out in chat if you're not familiar with Harmonize, so I can give a little bit of context, so that when I am in the Harmonize mode, it makes sense what we're actually talking through. So the things we're going to cover today is we're going to walk through kind of building some instructional materials. I'm going to talk through a little deeper around what our approach to this was inside of Harmonize, so that if you can recreate this in ChatGPT if you'd like, but also what that integration looks like. And then we will roll into building a rubric, which we'll be doing with the AI tools, both in ChatGPT and in Harmonize. And then at the end, we will roll into the rubric coach. I can't recreate that one for you outside of Harmonize, so that would be the one where hang tight as if you want to see it. But for those that are Harmonize users already, you'll be able to get a preview into what this looks like when we're working live with it. So. See, I do have one new person to Harmonize, so I'll give the 20-second, this is what Harmonize is, and then we will roll into some of the AI side of things. So what Harmonize is a discussion or assignment tool. It has a bunch of other things, but the area we're focused on is how do we have more engaging discussions with our students. And we do that by laying things out nicer from a video, imagery, media perspective, making it easier to discover content. But when we approach the world of online classrooms from an AI perspective, what we were seeing was that instructors could really use help with building discussion prompts, building rubrics, so that we can eventually scaffold and get to the point where we students know exactly what it is that they need to be doing, and then that we can actually coach them on that a little bit with AI. And all of these things are optional to the instructor inside of Harmonize, but when you come in and you see me working in this area, there will be, each of these is a student post. So this is student written content, and that can be images, videos, text, etc. And then you'll also see me working in the instruction area up here, where we will be building activities and building rubrics and such. So that is your 20-second whirlwind tour of what Harmonize is. But I'm going to go into an empty topic, and we're going to start by talking about activity building and talk about sort of what our underlying approach is to activity building. So when I am actually faced with a blank slate of trying to create an activity for my students, I can approach it in a couple different ways. I'm going to start by jumping into ChatGPT and kind of walking you through kind of how we thought about approaching this so you can see what it's like in just a standard AI world. And then I'll jump back over to Harmonize and show you what that integration looks like so you can think about how to use it perhaps inside of Harmonize for you. So everyone should be able to see my screen said ChatGPT, where I just have a blank session with ChatGPT. And I will share this session with you after the fact so you can see the things I'm typing and the things it's responding to. But when one of the first things that I need to think about when I'm actually inside of a topic is what are my students needing to learn and where are they at with the course material currently? So if I click on this generate prompt button, we are going to ask those questions. I want my students to understand information. The default for this we actually set for Bloom's taxonomy is called applying their knowledge. We assume that they've already, or we hope that they've already built some content knowledge. They understand the facts, they comprehend them, etc. They're ready to start applying that knowledge in a discussion forum. So that's the default. And then we're looking for what is it that the students actually want to discuss? What do you want the students to discuss? And do you actually have a learning objective for them? Which if you do, can we make sure that we're getting alignment between those? So those are the three pillars of what we want to be able to coach AI to be able to work with for us. And what that looks like when I'm just in ChatGPT mode is that first and foremost, it's like, well, what kind of activities are there? What are my possibilities? And so I can actually ask ChatGPT to give me some instructional strategies that I can use in a higher ed classroom. And the different levels of where my students at, if you're not familiar with it, we're using Bloom's taxonomy. So I'm picking the Bloom's taxonomy level of apply, and I'm asking it to give me some strategies so that I, as an instructor, can see, okay, practically speaking, I'm faced with the blank slate. Which of these is interesting to me? And it will give me a description of what some of those are. This is what underlies our integration with ChatGPT to where we are picking a bunch of strategies that are now implemented inside of Harmonize so that we are coaching the AI on some of these steps for you. So if you're doing it directly in ChatGPT, you can get a listing of them. And then maybe you're like, okay, I don't know which one of those are actually suitable for me. Maybe just pick 3 and give me some examples. And so in Harmonize land, what that would look like, I need to quit opening the wrong tab. Let's say I am teaching an accounting class and I'm wanting to talk about personal budgeting and I'm wanting the students to pick a personal savings goal as the main basis for their budgeting. All of those types of things that I might want. I might ask them to respond with a screen share or video or something so that it's harder for ChatGPT to help answer it. But I'm doing what here is what's called authentic assessment. I'm asking them to have some choice. I'm asking them to pick a personal real world example that relates to them so that I know I, from an accounting perspective, want to talk about personal budgeting. That's what the module is this week. But from a getting it related to my students' perspective, I want them to be able to pick something that matters to them. And I don't want ChatGPT to answer it, so I'm throwing in a little bit of answer in video or answer in screen share. If I take that same thing, well, let me go ahead and show you what it looks like here. So I can go ahead and generate these topic instructions. What we're going to do is we're going to pick one of those strategies for you, and we're just going to churn up an example for you so you can start to brainstorm around what this looks like. You know, like, oh, is that a good scenario for me, etc. You know, you can read it, see if you like it, etc. If you don't like it, you can click the try something different button, and we will pick a different strategy for you and be able to then build an activity until you find something that is close enough that you like. And you can, of course, suggest improvements, maybe not, of course, but you can suggest improvements to it. So you can be like, I want to, let me wait for it to be done generating. I can read the last one and be like, I want to oops, I just messed up there and closed hit the wrong button to close. So let's generate another one. While it's generating another one, I'm going to come into the ChatGPT land and talk through the same thing. So in ChatGPT, I asked for some instructional strategies and it gave me a bunch. And what I can say is, well, I don't know, but I want to say is like, this is what I'm teaching this, and I can put in that thing that I was teaching, and so I can say also pick 3 of those strategies and give me examples of discussion prompts for my online classroom. Same concept we're doing in Harmonize, right? Like basically as an instructor, I want to see examples. That's how my brain works. I want to see, is this something that I actually am willing to teach? And so it's picking 3 of those scenarios. This is the same thing as if I click try something different, try something different, try something different inside of Harmonize, and it's laying out an example prompt of what that could look like. So here I picked case studies, problem solving scenarios, and practical assignments. So trying to work those things in. If I look up here, there were quite a few. There were 7 different scenarios that could have chose from, but I picked 3 of those to say just narrow it down some, give me some examples. Back over here, oh, wrong tab again. Back over here, I have that example I was working with, but maybe I'm like, oh, I need the dollar amount to be greater than $20,000 for serious savings. I can send in that refinement and it will rewrite the prompt for me. I can do the same thing over in ChatGPT land where I'm like, okay, let's do scenario 2 and I want the dollar amount to be more than $20,000. So now it's narrowing in, it's picking the one scenario that I like, and I'm now refining the scenario that I like to where it's then reworking that example. So you can see over here, wrong tab again. It's now reworked the example over here in the same way. So really it's you can go to ChatGPT and do this type of interaction with ChatGPT, thinking through strategies, Bloom's level, et cetera. Or if you're a Harmonize user, that's the process we're going through for you here until you get to the point where you're comfortable saying, add this to my topic instructions. So now you have the activity in a builder to be able to then tweak as you see fit. So for example, over here in the ChatGPT land, it built out an example for me. Maybe I didn't like some of this, but you can always copy and paste it, put it into an editor and then tweak it as well. We're doing that same thing for you over here. So now I have it in my editor and I can build it. So some of the things that we are really trying to coach ChatGPT on is what are we expecting from our students, making sure that there's always an example of like clear detail on what we want our students to do. You may have to coach ChatGPT over here a little bit to be able to add some more of that. So they are giving instructions to the students, but really kind of making it do exactly what you want so you can continue to go back and forth with it to get to that point. And then come back into the wrong tab again, come back into the assignments. I'm going to move this tab so I don't keep doing that. So we're back in the assignment now. This is now an activity that's telling my students specifically what I want to do. We do recommend, and we see a lot better results from happiness of students if there is an instructor video or some sort on this. So if you do use the prompt generation and get this in place, take the extra time to go ahead and add some sort of personalization to it, to where you can, just do a quick introduction video of what you want your students to do, whatever that is, like, hey, everybody, this is what we're going to talk about today. This is what I want you to think about. Remember, this is what we talked about in our session last week as well. We're kind of tying on top of that, whatever sort of personal touch you want to give to it. Make sure you're thinking about that sort of instructor presence side when you're building these activities as well. If you're in a centralized model, like I saw Cameron here is in a centralized model, maybe this is the instructor making a first post versus actually modifying the instructions, but something to add some personality to it so that we then have some video. So that we can then introduce it to the class a little bit. And I do like to put these at the top of the instruction. So the first thing the students see is that instructor presence side of things, followed by that activity that we built. Do I have any questions on prompt building? Just to reiterate, the things that we're looking for here are, if you know the Bloom's level, pick it, change it to whatever you want it to be. If you don't know what Bloom's mean, go ahead and just try a few. And if it's too complicated, change it to a complexity level 2, which is one step down the Bloom's pyramid, or make it more complicated as well. You can do that. Give what you want to talk about and then add in a learning objective if you have it. I didn't actually put this into ChatGPT, but I could have told ChatGPT, I want whatever activity you build to line up to this learning objective, and it will structure as best it can the activity to line up to the learning objective. When you're using Harmonize, we've added a decent amount of coaching between you and ChatGPT, trying to force it to do what is the right thing there. So you will get different results from within Harmonize than ChatGPT. And then there's kind of a, pro con of which one you like better. This one's convenient because it's directly inside of the classroom. You don't have to have a ChatGPT account. But if you do it in ChatGPT, you might be able to get 40 examples at once if you'd like to be able to scroll through things. So there's a little more power over there. It's just more complicated to do because you have to go into the software and play with it. It just depends on how comfortable you are with technology. Not seeing any questions come in the chat. So I'm going to roll into the next thing with this rubric generation. With the eventual goal of getting to AI coaching, because we need all of these pieces to do the AI coaching. So I now have this activity. I want to get a rubric. I'm in Canvas. Same thing works in other LMSs, but there's a little touch more detail, a touch more functionality inside of Canvas here. When you're building a rubric, first and foremost, you could just say build a rubric and it would build it all. But the question is, what is the rubric? What are the main 4 criteria that the rubric are going to actually present to you? Like the student needs to focus on 4 things. What are those 4 things going to be? If I'm over here in ChatGPT, I can say, build a rubric for that assignment. And it will build a rubric for me. By default, it doesn't actually ask me any questions. So you probably want to prompt it and be like, no, ask me about the criteria. Like, what do I think the criteria are? Do I think they're right before you write the whole thing for me? But you can go this route as well. It also generates by default quite a long multiple criteria rubric, which up to you whether you think that's appropriate or not. So you can go back and forth and be like, no, I only want 4 criteria. And I like criterias 1, 3, and 5 of the list you gave me to be able to iterate with that. Inside of Harmonize, we go ahead and walk through that step for you. So we're going to actually break it up and say, okay, here are the areas we found. Once again, please edit them because super crucial that you read these. I can't stress this enough on AI. AI hallucinates. So if you are not familiar with AI, this may actually contain an outright misfact, a lie, whatever you want to call it, can be incorrect. So please read it closely because you're the instructor. You have to be in charge of your own content here. But once you have agreement on what these are, then you can go ahead and either add ones that are you prefer to be there or delete them, etc. Click the next button, and then we're going to go into generate a full rubric mode for you here, where we are then building the rubric with the 4 criteria, 4 rows. You could have added more. We stick with 4 rows by default to be able to just try to keep it a bit succinct so that it's not too overwhelming for the student to build it. But I could do the same thing over here and be like, reduce that to 4 criteria. And I just said you'd reduce it to 4 criteria. And so it'll simplify that rubric for me as well, which is the same thing we're doing over here where we're generating it for you. Benefit to this way is that we already have it in the software. So if you are over in ChatGPT, you're going to have to copy and paste and use a rubric builder, which is frankly a pain in the neck. So you can use these little pencils to edit this stuff and then save it. And then we are going to present a simplified version to the student where it's showing the criteria of what they should focus on with what the definition of success looks like with access to the full rubric, but we want to simplify that for them. And then I'm going to publish this. So now I have a introduction video, I have that activity that I've built, and I have the simplified rubric. Bonus of what we're doing inside of most LMS, all LMSs like the Blackboard, Moodle, D2L, we will actually make it available for grading. In Canvas, we go one step further and we actually put that into Canvas as a rubric. So it's associated here. So you can use it inside of SpeedGrader or you can link it up to outcomes. Inside of ChatGPT, you would have to copy and paste this cell by cell and build it inside of your LMS. So a bit of a pain there, but possible and still a time savings over building it on your own. Any questions on rubric building? Because now you have an activity that lines up to a proper Bloom's level. If you gave it an outcome, it's aligned to the outcome, which is fantastic. You now have a rubric, so your students are clear on what they need to accomplish, and you can actually use that to remove some grading bias, makes it quicker to grade because you just click the grade inside the LMSs, but also helps with bias and grading. So we aren't accidentally thinking, no, I really like that kid and then give him a bit stronger grade subconsciously. So some good benefit there. Do I have any questions on the rubric grading side before we get into the new feature we're launching, which is the rubric coach itself? Not seeing any questions. Going once, going twice in the chat. All right, let's get to the fun part, which is the new rubric coach. So this I can't recreate in ChatGPT directly. So this is going to have to be something that that we take a look at inside the LMS from a student perspective. So what do I mean by coaching? What do I mean by rubric coach? Let me go ahead while I'm talking through it. I'll get logged in as a student so we can see what this looks like. But the idea is we don't want to replace the grading process from the instructor. We don't want to, in fact, replace the instructor at all. But what we do want to do is be able to offer the students a really, really quick feedback loop on how they're doing, if they want. I'm going to say if a lot because it's all optional. The instructor can turn this on or not. The students can choose to do this or not. But what we're looking for is that, okay, we laid out this assignment here that actually had a nice activity built for me as the student, and it has a rubric associated with it. So I should be clear on what it is that I'm wanting to accomplish. I have the activity, I have the rubric, I can view the full rubric so I can get really nitty gritty into the detail of what all the different dimensions are. But what we are often seeing in our data is that students go through that, but they don't know, either because they don't read the rubric closely or because self-assessment needs a little bit of prompting. They don't know how they did or how they think they did, or they haven't really thought and then self-analyzed, like, did I actually do everything that the rubric was telling me I needed to do to succeed? Can we tighten that feedback loop so they can accomplish that? So here I have a student post where it's in draft mode. So I can go ahead and continue editing this. And this is me responding to the prompt. I haven't published this yet. None of my fellow students have seen it. I'm just in the process of authoring it. And so I have some stuff written. And now the question before me is like, do I just publish this and then I wait until the end of the deadline for the instructor to do it, to give me feedback from it? Or while I'm in the mode, can I get some quick feedback so I can turn around and actually make this better? So we have this new banner that you can turn on that basically says, do you want AI feedback on your one post before publishing? And there's a little question mark here that'll walk students through what it means and a video of what it means and everything. But if they click this view AI feedback, we are going to, that one went really quickly because it had already scanned my work once, but we are going to look at the rubric, look at the student work, look at the instructions, and try to steer the students to where they should focus. What is, in fact, getting worse every time I scan it? What stands to require a bunch of improvement? Which part of the rubric should I actually focus on? I had just edited the student to make their work actually worse because I wanted to show you improvement when we were demoing this. So you can see that there's actually room for quite a bit of improvement on a lot of these areas. We will open up whichever one is the absolute worst, which in this case is peer engagement, which from a student perspective makes sense because I haven't gone in to comment on other peers yet. I am really just authoring my first post. So I could take a look and be like, well, what did the rubric say about clarity and articulation? And then I can take a look at this here and say, okay, this is what the rubric said. We're actually going to add some better labeling to say this is what the rubric says here, and go take a look. You can go view the full rubric if you want. But we're not telling them what they did wrong. We're just telling them which part of the rubric they should focus on. So I can see, okay, concept analysis, I was supposed to take a look at 3 possible concepts and go through them all. Elizabeth, I'll cover your question in just a second. When I take a look at, now I'm gonna go grab a better version of this where I have actually a slightly better description of what I'm working on. 2 seconds. I'm going to do a better job of doing my concept analysis here. So I'm gonna replace the concept analysis part of this post that I'm editing here with something that actually goes through the process of describing the individual techniques. So I've made this better. I can add I can continue to add things and be like, and blah, 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 whatever it is. Well, I put shit blah, 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 because it's going to ding me on clarity. but I could put some additional thoughts in comments later or something like that. So I can just keep on typing things as I go through. So now I've edited my post, right? I've made it what I think is better, and I can say rescan my work. At this point, it's now going to take my previous work, it's going to take the rubric, it's going to take my next work, and it's going to try to determine, am I getting better or worse, whatever the case may be. You can see that I actually raised up on several things because I did a whole bunch more clarity around the concepts. I did the concept analysis, and my scenario development is well more fleshed out. So all of these items got better. It's still telling me that I need to do peer engagement. I know that because I haven't done any commenting yet, but I also can see I could still get some improvement in the clarity and articulation. So I could come up and actually do a better job of being clear in what I was doing. I could take a look and see, okay, it's talking about academic tone, writing is well organized. Maybe I added some grammatical errors when I typed in that one sentence to be able to have that still say some room for improvement. At least that was my intent. Yeah, additionals in comments later. Not great from a grammar perspective. So it's dinging me a little bit on the grammar perspective. There's still some room for improvement, so I could go fix those grammar mistakes and roll on and then get into the peer engagement side of things. Students can do this as much or as little as they want going through it all. I have some questions coming in on chat to be able to talk through what this looks like. But so first one from Elizabeth, is this feature accessible for students using assistive technologies and our keyboards only? Yeah, absolutely. Everything we do, we test with a screen reader every single release so they can navigate to all of this stuff and it will pull up for them and all of the labels are described correctly and everything. So yeah, they can access it without needing to be a sighted student if they need accessibility features. It's there for them. And I see Cameron asking if the rubric is a Canvas rubric, not generated via Harmonize, is Rubric Coach available? The answer is no. Currently, because when we look at the rubrics that are assigned via Canvas, they are often generic rubrics, which don't have a lot of detail around the specific assignment. And when we tried to do proper coaching with those, they did not have enough detail in them that we could reliably tell the student where they should focus. And so this currently at least has to be built with the Harmonize rubric builder because the Harmonize rubric builder is actually doing doing a good job of describing excellent means this with respect to this particular assignment. So we just couldn't make it work well enough that we were confident to be able to put it out for doing it if you had a Canvas rubric that you assigned. So the goal here is make the student think. That is the entire goal of it. Like we're not going to point them at particular error and tell them particular problems. We're just going to say like, oh, clarity and articulation. It was up to me to go figure out that free of grammatical errors was the problem I had actually introduced there. When I was writing my last concept analysis. Like, sure, it highlighted it for me because Google Chrome is nice that way, where it told me that I had some misspellings and such. But this is the area that I needed to do for improvement. So we're trying to make the students sort of stop and think about that as well. If I'm not using Harmonize, I can't do this real time, but you could actually funnel this through to ChatGPT, but I'm going to stress strongly, we played a lot with could we actually do grading with this? And the answer is you should not try to do this because it is not reliable enough. So even if you're seeing this and you're like, oh, I could use that in ChatGPT directly to do grading, please reconsider because despite all of our best prompt engineering, there is still some variability of what happens there. And it's not as good as a human, not as good as all humans. It may be better than some humans, but there's still some bias there. There's still some problems there. So please be careful if you try to go that route. And that's why kind of we're on this line here. We're like, it's not really the grading that I need to replace. It's really I'm trying to up the level of student thinking with a real-time feedback loop. And this will be good enough to do that in a first pass is what we're hoping, so that they can stop, think, improve, scan again, and then publish. All right. Any questions on the rubric coach before I cover a couple more aspects of it? Because this is me writing a post and doing my initial post draft, but I want to show you just a couple other places that it's available as well. Don't see any more questions coming in the chat. If you were to try to do this, you could actually write some instructions for your students to be able to do this on their own. You can be like, take my rubric and make suggestions, but be careful with that as well, because if your students start doing this, it's kind of a slippery slope to be able to actually just have it generate the whole prompt with written text straight from ChatGPT. That's why we often, I didn't in this example, but we often encourage students to do a little bit of a video reflection or something associated with the prompt so that they're not just answering in chat because I'm in text, because I wrote this with ChatGPT. You are able to do a pretty good job on assignments with ChatGPT. So this rubric coach only goes so far if your students are trying to actually cheat. we do have Turnitin integration with the AI scan stuff inside of Harmonize, so you can use that. But once again, put an asterisk next to that if it's not 100% foolproof. So the best way to avoid ChatGPT answering this, like I just did in my example here, is to ask for some personal reflections. Like in the activity I was building earlier, I was asking for personal choice about budgeting items, et cetera, and then have them do a video reflection on their thought process, their learning process, et cetera, so that you can actually combine the two and be like, okay, the student really did think through this as well. Something we're thinking about doing as well is that every time they do one of these iterations, it'd be great if we get like two sentences of like what you did that improved it and what was your thought process. So they're not just having to stop, think, and improve, but they actually have to give a little written description of what they're doing. These are some of the ideas we're playing with as well. Okay, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to go into another student. So let's say I'm taking a look at James's post here and I'm having to actually add a comment. Actually, let me go. I'm going to go publish this. So it's part of my written work. Say, okay, that was good enough. I am going to say publish. Now everybody in the class can see my post, even the fact that I misspelled coffee shop, which I'm just now noticing. But now I'm Laverne, and I'm going into James' post, and I'm reading what James has written, and I'm wanting to add a reply to this. So I can add a comment here, and I can be like, well, what kind of supply? I have another written response over here. Getting back to that, ChatGPT can do a lot of things, so please be careful with it. Let me go find my reply to here in my notes. Maybe I actually don't have a great reply. I did a reply for another one. Anyway, let me reply to myself because I'd set up my demo content wrong. So, so anyway, pretend that I wasn't Laverne and then I was actually responding to Laverne. I can come in here and actually add a response as a comment into what they were actually doing. I'm adding some critical thinking, et cetera. The same AI feedback is available here. So I can view AI feedback. And this will actually highlight, the example I'm doing here will actually highlight the fact that what the thing was actually asking for was peer critique. And it's telling me there's still much room for improvement because I did actually comment on the student work and I did it in a constructing and meaningful way. So I'm getting some of the pieces of peer engagement, but I responded to myself. So in the demo I was going to prepare, this was actually going to go through the roof and you'd be fine. As it is now, I guess this is maybe a good demo. Like it's like, okay, yeah, you're getting a little bump because you are doing some critical thinking in your responses and you're doing alternative concepts and methods, but it's actually not with a peer. It's with yourself. So you only get a little bit of boost for that and there's still much room for improvement. So this same stuff is available whether you are adding comments or whether you are making your initial post so that the AI coach is there with you along the whole way. In particular, if you're asking your students in your discussion to do meaningful engagement with each other and they are often responding with, I agree with Bob, yeah, it's not very meaningful. So this is a great way to encourage your students to actually do quality peer engagement because you define what that means and then they can either use the AI rubric coach to make sure that they are doing well, or you can grade them using the rubric and say they didn't do well and then they have that great feedback coming in for them as well. If I'm actually, I didn't publish that, so keep that in mind. If I'm actually scanning out here on the main area and I go to scan what's going on here, notice it says scanning 1 published post and 0 published comments. This main scan out here is only for published content. So if I have a draft that is out there that I haven't published yet and I come back here and scan, it's not considering that draft because I've left that draft dangling. It's not a part of the submitted work. And if I am back on the main page and I'm scanning, my peer engagement is actually scanning only published content. So you can see like, oh, like that. It noticed it only said it's 1 published post and 0 published comments. And my peer engagement actually went down. That's because I didn't publish that comment. So it's not part of the student body of work yet. So that we're trying to prompt the student with what are we scanning, what's getting better, what's getting worse, and to really think about what it is that they're doing. Like, why is my peer engagement so low? Oh, I left the draft I haven't published. I should have published that as I'm going through, but everything else is doing pretty well except for that grammar mistake I made. So this is now the next level of AI, right? This is something I can't easily create for you, for those that aren't using Harmonize and ChatGPT, but this is our first demo of it, so welcome. as we're going through it. So let me see what kind of questions we have. Can instructors see if students have used the rubric coach to improve their submission? Absolutely, Elizabeth. Um, the reason this is not live yet for you today, well, when it just came out of development, but we are adding the instructor side before the start of fall to where you'll be able to see they scanned 3 times and these are the results we showed them. So that we're not going to put those results directly in SpeedGrader because we don't want to bias your grading to sort of anchor you to the areas that we're saying for improvement. But in the SpeedGrader or in the other grading views, we will show you view the student scans that they did with AI. I don't know what wording we ended up using, and it will show them 3 scans. We said much room for improvement, some room for improvement, little room for improvement, so you can see what their growth, their student journey was like before they ended to the final thing that you're now grading and that is submitted. So you can see how much did they need the AI coach, how much did they use it, and how did they get from point A to point B, so that it's available for you when you're then doing your grading, or also just available in your activity view if you're not using it for grading purposes. But we're trying to be really careful of not influencing the instructor grade based on what the AI scan did. Because we want the human touch still in there of like, you as the instructor, take a look, see what you think. You're welcome to use these to help, point you in the right direction if you want, of like, okay, maybe I should go dig into their peer engagement, or maybe I should go dig into their clarity and find the grammar mistakes, etc. But we don't want to put that front and center because we want your first pass to be the impression of the student work for you as the instructor as you see it. Any other questions for us? Going once, going twice. So let me grab, just so everyone has it, this little session I was going back and forth with ChatGPT on. I could share this link, copy it out for you all, and then I'll put this out into the chat so that if you want the prompts that I was using there, they weren't terribly insightful prompts, but it gives you a feel for what you could do straight ChatGPT. Oops, I sent it to myself. That's not helpful. Send it to everyone out here so that you actually can go take a look at what I did interacting there. If I were going to spend a more meaningful session with ChatGPT, I would ask it to ask me for clarifying questions. So that would be the main difference between if I were sitting down to work with it. I would say something like, when building the rubric, ask me clarifying questions to make sure you're doing a better job, or something like that. And then it will shift into question answer mode. If you're not super clear on what you want, I think that's a great way to start. So it'll actually ask you some of your thoughts on things. You can respond to them and go back and forth. If I were sitting down for a real session with ChatGPT versus a demo session, that's probably how I would have approached things. All right. Any questions for us all? No. I'll be sharing this recording out. Probably, gosh, I'm off tomorrow because it's Juneteenth. So it might be a little later in the week before I get the recording out, maybe at the end of the day if my day goes well. So you can always follow up and ask questions around that as we're playing with it. The rubric coach itself is not available yet in your Harmonize instance. We'll be turning that on once we get the instructor side done. We are looking for people to try to work with it in the fall and see what areas it works well in, what areas it doesn't, to be able to put a critical eye towards it because it is something rather new. So if you are interested in that, let us know. And I mean, we'll make it available for you, but we're definitely interested in you finding instructors who are intentional about its use, and then also maybe get some student feedback on what they thought about it as well. Excellent. All right, I'm going to give you a little bit of your day back. I'll send this recording out when it's done, and we'll talk soon. If you have any questions for me, you'll get it in the email, but you can also just reach out to me at Marcus@Harmonize. If I could spell my own company name, harmonizelearning.com. There, you can always shoot me an email and ask any follow-up questions. Thanks for the kudos, appreciate it, and we will talk soon.